Eskew. Jennifer, I know the book. We have an announcement. Here
Yes,
we go.
we do.
What's the
Yes,
announcement?
we do. As of today, as of about an hour ago, I went ahead, clicked the button, and I said, let's do this. Let's look at what's the best chance of the distributor getting it out on a date. I picked November 18th. It's a Tuesday, about what, 3.5 weeks or so from now, and it is going to be the launch date for my book. I'm not sure how this will show up out there, but this is the cover. Um, it is Becoming Fire, Chasing the Passion to Protect, Serve, and Love, a true crime memoir. And it's by me, Jennifer Clarke Eskew. So you can order it through Amazon, through, let's see, Barnes and Noble. You can get it at your local bookstore, Walmart. Pretty much everybody distributes from Ingram Sparks. And so all of those places, if you know my name or you know the book name, you can order it starting November the 18th.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. We have a
Now,
fantastic guest too, right?
yes, we do. I've invited Jewett Reynolds, and Jewett is he's a deputy investigator with the Nelson County, Virginia Sheriff's Department, but he's also their explosives canine handler. He's also an explosives canine trainer and works with other types of canines as well in the training. Um, he has been in the military, got more than 10 years with the military and some service overseas and places that a lot of us, have been dealing with for the last couple of decades. In addition to that, he is got more than 25 years in law enforcement, so a very extensive background in a lot of different areas of that. And this year, he became the host of his own brand new podcast, Truth for Change. And I know it's on Spotify, and he also has it airing on YouTube because I've watched several of his episodes on YouTube this year. And then he's also been filming in a studio in Bedford, Virginia, known as Media Squatch. And Media Squatch Plus has an app that's available. And so there's a lot of different ways to hear him. But Jewett, welcome to the show.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's always good when you can be on a show and be able to sit on your porch and do it. So
Not
it's a good
bad.
day.
And you got a pretty day, too.
It is a very nice day.
Yeah. Um, all right. I know you've been a cop. I know you've been in the military, all those things. I think it's really great that you got the doggies. And last time I saw you, you were riding two of those doggies around in the car.
Yes, ma'am.
But somewhere in there between that and having a pretty good sized family, you have got time for a podcast. So how did that get started?
So I retired as a captain in a local jurisdiction back in 2023, and then I don't know, like from my standpoint, law enforcement, we had all the police reform and everything else, and I felt like I'm not trying to point the fingers at anybody, but I think from a leadership standpoint, we just adopted more of a mentality like firemen. We were just going to wait for the calls to come in. And I think we stopped having honest conversations about what violent encounters were and what it, and instead of saying like, hey, there are violent people out here that are willing to do you and your family harm, instead of having those conversations and like, hey, now we have body cameras required, all this other, you're seeing a lot of people that are questioning like, well, their tactics are this, their tactics are that. And I think what they forget is these people don't just stop their violent acts just because we interact with them. They will continue to be violent. That's just the nature of it. You worked in that type of realm. I mean, it's not pure without some kind of intervention. They're going to end up in someone's home, and hopefully the homeowner has some training, but if not, by that violent encounter where the police win the encounter, the homeowner's not going to win that encounter. And I think that's, for me, what I saw was a lack of candor, I guess, with the general public to say, yes, there are things that we can do better, but let's be honest about it. We were out here dealing, at least in my career, I dealt with what I felt like were the worst of the worst violent criminals, people that were carrying guns, homicide suspects, and things like that. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think what I wanted to do is get the word out to the general public. If our leadership is not going to say it, then maybe I can say it in a little bit better way. I brought victims of crimes on. I had a lady that came in that her husband was killed in front of her. Had you
Mm.
on, had some other guests, just had a mother that her child was abducted and trafficked. And I think when you see that, I just got tired of seeing like our response, which is like, well, hopefully it works out for you. And we're trying to do things what I feel like are more about getting style points as opposed to like actually getting down to using the information that we have. We have all this amazing technology to do intelligence-based policing, but instead we're just doing the same old things, like, well, let's get cars that the lights are on top of them so we drive around so we can see police cars. And it just, I think it's missed in the fact of, in my experience overseas, is there are a very minimal number of people that are committing the crimes in the country. There's no reason why we can't target. When I say target, everybody's ears perk up, but it is
Yeah.
like, honestly, who's committing the crimes in your locality. Let's go after them rather than let's go after the people that are committing the crimes rather than just like making the people feel better because they see a police car go by. And so that's
No,
kind of what I wanted to do.
and that's true, but we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's, I mean, especially if we know that this is where the violent crime is, this is where the possibilities is where you need to put more boots on the ground, and yet we can't do that. We needed to remember we got to be staying away and just waiting for the crime to happen than when it's going to happen, unless we could stop it from happening.
Right. No, you're exactly right. And I think that's why it's important to, I think if you prepare the general public, example I gave is, it's been a few years ago, two Pennsylvania state troopers got shot outside their barracks. And the Pennsylvania State Police did a tremendous job of like messaging and saying, look, this person is going to kill somebody else if we don't intercept them and interdict them. And as a result of that, when they finally had to interdict that guy and deal with him and he was killed, it was a totally different community response than it would have been if, like, if they didn't stay ahead of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You're talking about the difference between reactive and proactive. And
Exactly.
I know in my agency before I retired, they had a new paperwork system that came out. And with that paperwork system, there was this 3 blocks, and you had to check one in regards to your case that you were starting to open and work. And it was adoptive. In other words, somebody else had worked at like a sheriff's department, like you had caught a felon with a gun. Let's say a career criminal, somebody who's multi-felons, gets caught with a gun in a traffic stop. You've got him. You would call me as an ATF agent. And all I would do is adopt it to take it through the federal court system instead of the state system. So he would get more punishment. But I didn't do any work. All I did was take your paperwork and Xerox it. And that's adoptive, which means I'm sitting in an office at a computer or at my home. I'm not really doing anything. That's a waste of time. But the second block was reactive. Something has happened, and now we're going to it. Well, maybe it was an explosion. Maybe it was a fire. Now we're going to go over there and find out what it was. I'm going to investigate, and we're going to find out it was an arson. We're going to find out it was a bombing, or it was an accident, or it was the natural causes, or lightning strike. It could be anything. Well, we get that done. So that's a more reactive or proactive. You could kind of look at it both ways. But then there is just straight up proactive, which I take from what you were saying. That's a better approach because I already know where people are being victimized. I already know where the majority of carjackings are taking place. I already know where we're hearing about numerous sexual assaults or assault and batteries or armed robberies or muggings, anything that's actually causing people to come into contact with one another, and somebody is going to be a victim and could get killed or seriously injured. Because nowadays a brain injury, facial eye injuries, things, spinal cord injuries, that's permanent, life lasting, besides the emotional impact that
it takes on the family.
It's going to last you forever, that, with these things happening. So if I already know this, and I know this for a fact, I'm not targeting and I'm not profiling, but I'm trying to make sure that my police are in those neighborhoods and in that area looking for these people to stop them before they commit the crimes, looking for what's going to happen. it's the same as having a police officer in a school before a shooting takes place. Don't have that shooting and then have us come running in to clean up the aftermath. It's have them there to stop it before it ever gets in that school. It's have them in that community, build community relations. That's big.
Right.
Whatever the community might be, whoever they are, build community relations and be proactive. You'll get information from people and feedback. And so I think the proactive part was something I like doing, more so than adoptive.
I think the nice thing about the federal system I always found was that first step was they always had in law enforcement in the federal system, it was always before you took your plea, it was acceptance of responsibility.
Yes.
And all that did is gave us the other people that were involved in the criminal activity, which just springboarded us into new investigations, it just kind of snowballed. Instead of taking one person out, we're taking an entire organization. And I think that's where the federal system is just phenomenal, and you have the federal grand juries and everything else that you can bring in and collect a ton of information, intelligence, and actually go out. But again, you have to prepare the public. And I think about with the roundups right now with they're targeting violent felons for deportation. But I mean, you can look at that a lot of different ways. But the fact is, like, I don't think anybody would want somebody violent next door to them. And so,
I don't care who they are. I don't care who they are. I don't want them in my neighborhood.
Exactly right.
And it doesn't matter. I don't care if they were born and raised right here where I live. If they are a violent person, if they are prone to striking out or threatening and harming other people, I don't want them in my community. I don't want them around my neighbors and other people here. I don't want them around my family. No one wants that. You don't want a sexual predator anywhere near your family, much less your kids,
Yeah. So why doesn't, and I'm gonna ask both of you guys this question, community policing, where they're pushing the whole community thing, where there are less police, more counselors on board, all these different things, and how that won't work in certain communities?
I mean, if you want to ask from my standpoint, I think it would be a tremendous thing if they stay inside of what they're supposed to do. One of the worst things that happened in the Commonwealth of Virginia, particularly during COVID, is we were responsible for TDOs and ECOs. So in other words, somebody has a mental health episode, we come and pick them up, and we're stuck with them for almost 72 hours. Well, what have we done is we've created, okay, first of all, that is not a law enforcement function. We should not be sitting with somebody in the ER for 70 some hours, because to me, that just makes it worse. So like for me, that isn't something that we want to do. And I think that would be a great thing for mental health. But as far as the other part of it, which is to get in the communities, is they have to feel safe to have a conversation. And if we're not in their communities, they're not going to feel safe to have those conversations. And if they're not going to trust us to give us information, because the criminal justice system requires a witness. And again, that's where I feel like the federal system works so well, is because because you can collect so much information, you don't have to depend on one person. It's not a one-on-one situation. This person saw this person commit this crime. They use the grand jury, and you have a ton of information about the whole organization.
Well, I think very much the grand juries are excellent, and they're the perfect tool. Unfortunately, and I saw it when I was with the state system, and then I saw it through my career with the federal system because of working with state and local law enforcement all the time. Task force guys like yourself, because you were task force both with DEA, ATF, and the U.S. Marshals during your career. So you saw how we all interacted and worked. Small offices of just a handful of agents, anywhere from 3 to 6 or 8 agents, but task forced up, we would become 12 or even up to 20 of us, and it would handle things. And with the grand juries, I saw a long time ago, just in Virginia, that the Commonwealth attorneys who are elected every 4 years, and then their assistant Commonwealths, they got away from utilizing the grand jury, letting a grand jury hear the preponderance of evidence, just enough to determine, is there enough for a charge? Should we ask more questions? Should you get more subpoenas and get more information and present more evidence before? Because we're not going to give you a true bill until you present more. Or, yes, it's a true bill. We definitely want to get this rapist or this murderer. Yes, you're indicted. And use them in that way. And not just use them in a perfunctory sort of way to where they're just sitting there and they either vote yes or no and move on. Yes or no and move on. It needs to be more. And in a federal grand jury, we did that. They used them and they let them make those decisions like they were supposed to, like a grand jury is supposed to work. Let those people ask questions and make suggestions. And I'd go in and testify under oath. I'd have my whole case laid out in front of me. I had certain things that I knew that I was going to be asked by the assistant U.S. attorney that was presenting the case to the grand jury. And then the grand jury members would actually ask me questions because they wanted to know more details or a little bit more specific about a certain violation, a certain criminal act. And, we got to do that because that does help the community more, because those people are from the community. They're going to go back in the community and tell them what they experienced.
I think that's a great point. It's not just that they're going to indict somebody. They're going back in that same community and go, you will never believe what happened. I think people don't realize the depth. When you go in there and say, hey, we just intercepted 50, we hit a case, and as small as we are, we hit a case where they had a lab, a recrystallization lab in Atlanta, Georgia, where a Chinese national was crystallizing meth oil into methamphetamine, crystal methamphetamine, and he was doing close to 100 pounds a week. And when you come back to your small jurisdiction and go, this is where it's coming from, and we couldn't have done it without the federal system. People start taking notice and are like, instead of seeing a story and like, well, that's so far removed, they're bombing boats, they're doing this. And then you're like, no, actually there is a connection, because this person, you put a name and a face with it, it's a totally different story, in my opinion.
It is. And I just would like to see, you can have more community policing, and you can have more, as you said, with all the technology we've got today. I mean, from YouTube, there are ways for sheriffs and chiefs of police and the public information officers and all, Facebook, all these things that they can use to let people know what they're doing. They're not just buying another fast car to go chase down speeders, or, there's more to it than that. And, you start learning about all these street races and the drag race things that they're doing, and their street takeovers is what I guess they're calling them. And you're starting to have a lot of shootings at these street takeovers. There's a lot more violence going on.
Yep. And so I'm going to ask both of you, I guess, in a lot of ways, Jennifer, you've written your book. What's a reason also for you to get out here too? And have a podcast, have all this information. Is there a reason to put yourself out there where there are so many people anti both of you? Honestly, there is a good percentage, and there's a good percentage that loves you. I mean, it's half and half, totally. But
I tell you this, everybody loves us when they call us, because they whatever they had that they couldn't deal with and that we're there to deal with, they love us then, until we have to tell one side that they're wrong, and then we go 50-50 again.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah. It's a love-hate relationship. You're on a roller coaster with every call, with every investigation. There's always going to be something. There are good people though that come out and they will fix you a glass of tea and bring it out to you when you're out there, working something, and they feel like they need to do it. One of the most touching things I ever saw was 9/11, and there was a little neighborhood over there near where we were working in the sifting operations at the North Pentagon parking lot. And these stay-at-home moms, I guess, or maybe it's just because of what was happening, they were at home, but they had their kids with them, and little kids, and they were bringing us thank you notes and all sort of things. But they also brought us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and cookies that they had made. And then they thought, well, maybe we won't make them the sandwiches ahead of time. We're going to bring them loaves of bread and jars of peanut butter. And so I've got like 9-year-olds giving me all this stuff and handing it through the fences and wanting us to have it. And, we're standing right there talking to them and socializing with them. And they're seeing, that we're not the bad guys. We're there to be the good guys. And that we appreciate what they've done for us and thinking about us. And you can bet we ate everything that they gave us because we were hungry. So it was good. But it's little things like that in so many ways every day. And you have to just, the people that aren't going to like you, they got their reasons for not liking you. And a lot of times it's because they're tied up in something criminal. They're getting ready to go back to prison again. They're getting ready to be separated from their kids because of their behavior. They're not wanting to have that acceptance responsibility. They're not wanting to deal with the fact that they need to seek help with whatever it might be, anger management, their drug abuse or alcohol abuse issues, spousal abuses, any of those things.
Right.
So yeah, they get mad.
So what about, so I know why Jennifer's out there, her book.
So for
her
me,
book and story, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the reason I wanted to do it is I think I've heard a lot of people's stories, even coworkers and things like that. And I don't think we're that far apart. I think you've got extremes on both sides of it. You got left, right. And I think the only thing that keeps us in the left and the right is a lack of conversation in the middle saying, hey, when you start looking at the roadmap that these people are taking, I don't think there's any, there are a select few that are like, hey, I'm going to burn it to the ground. But most people, I think by and large, if you sit down and talk with them, even the most liberal person you can think of or the most conservative, they still, if they are what they are projecting, which are really proud Americans, they are trying to make America better and they're trying to make their communities better. So like for me, I want to bring people on like that to have conversations that hopefully they'll go home or people listen here and go, they're not that bad. They're not that far away from where I'm at. They have a different view of how we're going to get there. But at the end of the day, it's a human being that is trying their best to make this country better.
Wow.
And so how can I toss stones at people like that?
No, I love it. And I love that you're doing that and you're putting your time in to make it happen. Congrats on doing that and to start your own podcast and get it out there and now go through the journey of growing it, seeing how far it can grow and what difference you can make on the podcast. Key.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on because it really is. I've had a lot of people that have helped me through my career, and I was at training the other day, and I think one of the things that I hear a lot is we are the ones that are going to have to transition the next generation to do what we do. And if we don't do a good job of explaining to them how that works, it's not going to get better. And so I feel like if that's in some small way, I can pay back what people have done and took this road before me. And I thought the podcast was a way to get some of those people on to talk about their careers, but also people that have been, experienced all the different things to give them that chance.
When are you going to write your story? Have you written your story yet?
I've already thought of a book. I don't know how rated this is, but like I wanted to write a book that said you can't make this shit up because there are so many stories I could tell, and you'd go in there and you're like, I can't believe that just happened. My mom probably wouldn't talk to me if I used that.
So there's the best person ever, and Jennifer will say where to go, and that's Storehouse Media Group. Yes, that'd be fantastic. And one of the programs they're doing now is having me do like a podcast interviews with them, and then they have a book done. So they don't need to go the ghostwriter. They just do a bunch of stories and get interviewed, and I pull information, and it's a book. So that's something for you to look at. I was going to talk to Sherry more about that and say, Sherry, this is what we're doing for Dr. James, and we're looking to do it with other people. What an opportunity, especially so that frees you up a bit, Sherry. All you have to do is rewrite it. You don't have to ghostwrite all the time. And I can ask the right questions, pull out the right information, and it's done. And I don't care. I'll do interviews all day. 12 hours a day. And sometimes I do that, Jude. So you don't want to get as addicted as me about podcasts. I do about 32 to 33 shows a week. I don't even know. I've lost track. If you go to my one YouTube channel where I just broadcast live stream it, you'd laugh and see all the different people I talk to each week. But it's a great job, and podcasting can become addictive. So Jude, letting you know that could happen.
Well, like I said, I think it's really cool when you get different people on and they talk and they have different things that they talk about. I think one of the things that's been a reoccurring thing for me is nobody that I've had on has thought that their story was amazing. but every story I've heard was amazing to me. And I guess for me, I don't think my story is that dramatic or amazing. I think it's pretty damn entertaining, but I mean, that's just me. I think it is extremely entertaining, because honestly, like you really couldn't make up some of the stuff that you deal with. So,
well, we're going to be able to get you to monetize day one thanks to Radiate. So that'll, I guess, I'm working with them, and I'm going to be, I don't know how quickly I'm going to be throwing podcasts out there. But if you're looking to earn day one versus YouTube, where you have to get 1,000 subscribers and then deal with their censorship, there's a place for you. So there you go.
okay.
Something to
That's
think about.
that's an opportunity which other people are paying for, and I, as a distributor, am not charging hosts. We'll see what that happens. Is that's going to become where I'm doing hundreds of shows uploading every day, but we'll find that out when that time comes.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested, because one of the things that frustrated me as we've gone through the journey that we've gone through thus far is, I don't know if you watched it, but I had the ATF agent that did Fast and Furious and was the whistleblower. Do you know how many people watched that podcast? Less than 1,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy
Okay,
smokes! Like,
so that's a less than 1,000 on YouTube.
it was between. So we had some of the reels, but yes, on YouTube, I don't think more than several hundred, less than 1,000 listen to his entire story. And this dude is telling you stuff that is like relevant today and everything else. And all they're doing is just like, oh, okay, that's entertaining. And it's not. It's like, no, this is policy. This is policy where people, like, if this is my thought, you have concealed people, the Concealed of America or whatever, they've got their YouTube, they got their Facebook page. How come we can't connect with somebody like that who would love to push that information out to their people? And they've got millions
Well,
of
we need to
people.
talk. I'm talking. You got to talk to the media giant. He knows how to make things happen. Jennifer's
Okay.
seeing that already.
Yeah.
As you're growing on your, and you know what? Isn't it surprising when you'll start seeing your YouTube reels? I get shorts, huge views, but it's all about the copy. And I have a secret, but we'll have to talk about that. But again, I definitely think you have a show that people are looking for, and especially in law enforcement. Here's a step: deliver it to as many law enforcement people as possible. And the audio side is going to be one that they're going to tune in more and more than the video. The video is great, but the audio is one where you can find busy people versus not. And Jennifer, soon your website will be up. And now you at least have that date set in for the book, and you go to Jennifer Clarke Eskew author .com.
Just .com. Jennifer Clarke Eskew.
Yeah, Jennifer
I don't know
Clarke
if they can see it,
Eskew.com.
right
And then
there.
you purchase the book right there. And everything will be good. And we
Yep.
won't be using Amazon servers, so don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh.
AWS dropped the ball. That's for sure. All right. All right. Well, we appreciate it, Jude. And best place people can check out your podcast. Where can they go?
Okay. The best place is the word truth, the number 4, and change. And if you type that in, our whole show will show up.
Okay.
That's the way to get there. So.